"Margaret, I need you to come to my office. It's about Robert. It's urgent." That voicemail changed everything. For 38 years, I was married to Robert Sullivan, and for 5 years since his death, I thought I knew exactly who he was: a dedicated financial advisor, a loving husband, a father who worked too hard but meant well. I was wrong. The call came on a Tuesday morning in April, 3 weeks before my son Michael's wedding. I was in my kitchen in Portland, Oregon, arranging flowers for the engagement party when my phone buzzed. Thomas Chen. I hadn't heard that name since Robert's funeral. Thomas had been Robert's business partner at Sullivan and Chen Financial Group for 20 years. After Robert died suddenly of a heart attack at 57, Thomas had retired early, moved to Arizona, and we'd lost touch. I listened to the voicemail 3 times. My hands shook as I called him back. "Margaret," Thomas said, his voice tight. "Thank you for calling. I know this is strange timing, with Michael's wedding coming up." "What's this about?" I asked. "Is something wrong?" "I need you to come to Portland First Bank tomorrow morning at 10. Robert left something for you in a safety deposit box. I've been the co-signer, but I can't access it without you. He made me promise to wait 5 years before telling you." 5 years? Why would he? "Please just come." "And Margaret." He paused. "Don't tell Michael or Vanessa. Not yet. Robert was very specific about that." I couldn't sleep that night. Robert had been gone 5 years. 5 years of grief, of learning to be alone, of watching Michael build his career at the same investment firm his father had started. Michael had stepped seamlessly into Robert's role after graduating from business school, and now at 35, he was a partner. His fiancée Vanessa worked there too, in client relations. They'd met at the office 3 years ago. It should have made me happy, my son carrying on his father's legacy. But something about Thomas's call unsettled me. The next morning, I told Michael I was having lunch with an old nursing colleague. I'd retired from Providence Portland Medical Center 2 years ago, so he didn't question it. He was too busy anyway, finalizing wedding details. The ceremony was set for May 15th at the Sentinel Hotel. 200 guests, everything Michael and Vanessa wanted. Portland First Bank was downtown, a granite building I'd passed 1,000 times but never entered. Thomas was waiting in the lobby. He looked older, grayer, and there was something in his eyes I couldn't name. Sadness? Fear? Margaret. He hugged me, brief and stiff. "I'm sorry to do this, but I made a promise." The bank manager led us to a small room with a metal table. She brought the safety deposit box and left us alone. It was medium-sized, heavier than I expected. "Before you open it," Thomas said, "you need to understand something. Robert came to me 6 weeks before he died. He'd discovered something about the firm, about Michael." My chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" "He couldn't prove it yet. He was collecting evidence. He told me if anything happened to him, I should wait 5 years, then give this to you. He said 5 years because—" Thomas looked away. "Because Michael needed time to expose himself. Robert believed his son would eventually make a mistake big enough that you'd believe the truth." "The truth about what?" "Open the box." Inside was a USB drive, a manila envelope, and a letter in Robert's handwriting. My hands trembled as I unfolded the letter. "My dearest Maggie, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And 5 years have passed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for keeping this from you. I'm sorry for leaving you alone with this burden, but most of all, I'm sorry about Michael. Our son is not who you think he is. He's not who I wanted him to be." The USB contains recordings, documents, and emails that prove Michael has been defrauding clients since he joined the firm, not small amounts. We're talking about millions of dollars siphoned into offshore accounts through falsified investment statements. I started suspecting it 2 years after he joined us. Small discrepancies. Clients complaining about returns that didn't match their statements. I ignored it at first. He's my son. I made excuses. But the evidence kept piling up, and I couldn't look away anymore. I confronted him. He denied everything. 2 weeks later, I had my first heart attack. The doctors said it was stress, blocked arteries, genetics. But Maggie, I know my body. I've never had heart problems. I've been on blood thinners for my knee surgery recovery. Someone tampered with my medication. The symptoms started after that confrontation with Michael. I can't prove it, but I know. And if you're reading this, it means I was right to be suspicious. I'm gone, and it likely wasn't natural causes. Thomas knows everything. He has copies of all the evidence. I'm sorry to put this on you, but you're the only person I trust to do what's right. Michael is your son. I know that makes this unbearable. But these are real people he's stealing from. Families, retirees, people who trusted us. Please don't blame yourself. I don't. We raised him with values, with integrity. Something broke in him that we couldn't see. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was something else. It doesn't matter now. I love you. I love him too, despite everything. That's why I couldn't do this myself. But you can. You're stronger than you know. Do what's right, Maggie. Even when it's impossibly hard. Forever yours, Robert. The letter fell from my hands. The room spun. Thomas caught my arm as I swayed. I need water, I whispered. He left and returned with a bottle. I drank, trying to process what I'd just read. My husband, my son, 5 years of grief, and now this. Robert was investigating, Thomas said quietly. He'd been secretly copying files for months. The recordings on that USB are from meetings where Michael discussed the fraud with someone else. I don't know who. Robert died before he could tell me. You think Michael killed him? My voice cracked. I think Robert was right to be paranoid, and I think you should look at the evidence before you decide anything. I opened the manila envelope. Inside were printed bank statements from Grand Cayman, wire transfer records, and emails. I recognized Michael's email address. The amounts made me nauseous. $8 million over 7 years. Distributed across 23 client accounts, always small enough amounts to avoid immediate detection. But it was the handwritten notes in the margins that destroyed me. Robert's handwriting, documenting everything, dates, amounts, client names, and at the bottom of one page, confronted M today. He said, "Dad, sometimes you have to take what's yours." He wasn't apologizing, he was warning me. "The USB," I said. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Thomas pulled out his laptop and inserted the drive. There were 11 audio files, each labeled with a date. The oldest was from 7 years ago. The most recent was dated 2 days before Robert's death. I clicked the first one. Michael's voice came through the speakers, younger but unmistakable. "The Winston account is perfect. They're elderly. They don't check their statements carefully. We can skim 2% annually. They'll never notice." Another voice, female. "What if they do? We blame market volatility. Show them fake charts." "It's not complicated, Vanessa." My stomach dropped. Vanessa, his fiancée. They'd known each other for 7 years, not 3 like they'd told me. This had been going on since Michael first joined the firm. I played another recording. This one was from a client meeting. Michael's voice, smooth and professional, explaining investment strategies while knowing he was lying to these people's faces. An elderly couple, the Hartfords, trusting him with their retirement savings. The third recording was from 5 years ago, just weeks before Robert died, a confrontation. "Michael, I have the evidence." Robert's voice, strained. "The offshore accounts, the falsified statements, all of it. You need to stop this now. We'll figure out how to make restitution. How to ruin my life, you mean?" Michael's voice was cold. "Dad, I've made 10 times what you ever did. Those clients don't need that money. They're already rich. They trusted us. They trusted you. You're the Boy Scout. I'm the one who actually understands how this world works. Money flows to people smart enough to take it. I'm going to the SEC if you don't stop." A long pause. Then Michael laughed, sharp and bitter. "No, you won't. You can't report me without destroying the firm, without destroying your legacy. You care too much about the Sullivan name to burn it down. Watch me. Dad, you're not well. All this stress, your heart. Maybe you should retire, take it easy. We wouldn't want something to happen to you." The recording ended. I sat frozen, staring at the laptop. That wasn't the Michael I knew. That wasn't my son. But it was his voice, his words, his threat. "There's more," Thomas said softly. "The last recording is from 2 days before Robert died." I didn't want to hear it, but I clicked play. Robert's voice, shaky. Thomas, if you're hearing this, something happened to me. I've been having strange symptoms the past week. Dizziness, irregular heartbeat, shortness of breath. My doctor can't explain it, but I know. My blood thinner medication, the pills look the same, but I think they've been replaced. I can't prove it, but I started taking them to an independent lab for testing. The results won't be back for another week. A pause. Heavy breathing. Michael came by my house yesterday while Maggie was at work. He made tea for me, insisted I drink it. I pretended to, then poured it out after he left. I found my medication bottle in a different spot in the cabinet. He had access to everything. Another pause. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize to him. I'll apologize for even thinking this. But if I'm right, if I die in the next few weeks, you'll know. Tell Maggie. Tell her after enough time has passed that she can see Michael for who he really is. Tell her I'm sorry I brought this man into the world, and I'm sorrier I couldn't stop him. The recording ended with a click. I couldn't breathe. The room was too small, the air too thin. My son, my Michael, the baby I'd nursed, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd been proud of, a murderer. Margaret, Thomas said, his hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you earlier, but Robert made me promise. He said you needed time to see Michael on your own, to notice things. Has anything seemed off? I thought about the past 5 years. Michael had been attentive after his father's death, almost too attentive. He'd helped me with the finances, taken over Robert's accounts, insisted on handling everything. He'd encouraged me to stop working, to retire, to downsize from the big house to a smaller condo. Less for me to worry about, he'd said. And Vanessa, who'd supposedly met Michael 3 years ago, she'd been so sweet, so eager to include me in wedding planning. But now I remembered little inconsistencies, references to places they'd visited long before they were supposed to have met. Inside jokes that didn't make sense for a 3-year relationship. I need to go home, I said. What are you going to do? Thomas asked. I don't know. But I did know. I knew I couldn't unknow this. I knew my son had killed his father. I knew I had a choice to make, and both options would destroy me. I took the USB, the documents, everything. Thomas offered to come with me, but I refused. I needed to think. I drove for hours, no destination, just driving through Portland's streets while my world collapsed. Every memory was poisoned now. Michael's childhood, his graduations, his successes. Had there always been something wrong? Had I missed the signs? By the time I got home, it was dark. Michael's car was in my driveway. He was sitting on my porch, scrolling through his phone. When he saw me, he smiled. That same smile I'd loved for 35 years. Mom, where have you been? I called you 5 times. Vanessa and I wanted to talk about the rehearsal dinner. I looked at him, really looked at him, his father's eyes, my nose, but something else underneath, something I'd never wanted to see. I was out, I said. I needed some air. Are you feeling okay? You look pale. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him, shake him, demand the truth. But instead I smiled. Just tired, honey. Can we do this tomorrow? He frowned, studying me. Sure. But Mom, seriously, are you okay? I'm fine. After he left, I sat in the darkness of my living room with the USB on the coffee table in front of me. I had evidence of fraud, evidence suggesting murder, evidence that could send my son to prison for the rest of his life. I could destroy it, pretend Thomas had never called, let Michael marry Vanessa, look the other way while they continued stealing from people who trusted them. I could choose ignorance, choose my son, choose the easier path. Or I could do what Robert couldn't. I thought about Robert, lying in that hospital bed 5 years ago, looking at me with those desperate eyes before the second heart attack took him. I'd held his hand as he died, never knowing he'd been murdered, never knowing our son had killed him. I thought about the clients, the Hartfords, whose voices I'd heard on the recording, trusting Michael with their retirement. 23 families, all betrayed. And I thought about who I was. Margaret Sullivan, retired nurse. 38 years I'd sworn an oath to do no harm, to help people, to stand up for what was right even when it was hard. At 2 a.m., I made my decision. The next morning, I called the FBI's Portland field office. I told them I had evidence of financial fraud and possible murder. They sent 2 agents to my condo that afternoon. Agent Sarah Winters and Agent James Park sat across from me in my living room. I gave them everything: the USB, the documents, Robert's letter, Thomas Chen's contact information. I told them about the recordings, about Robert's death, about my suspicions that it wasn't a natural heart attack. "Mrs. Sullivan," Agent Winters said gently, "you understand that if we investigate this, your son will likely be arrested?" "I understand. And you're willing to testify if necessary?" I looked at the photo on my mantel. Michael's college graduation, Robert's arm around his shoulders, both of them grinning. The last photo where I believed we were a happy family. "Yes," I said. "I'm willing to testify." The investigation took 3 months. They exhumed Robert's body, tested tissue samples, found traces of digoxin, a heart medication Robert had never been prescribed, but one that Michael had somehow obtained. The FBI recovered the offshore accounts, matched wire transfers to Michael's personal computer, found communications between him and Vanessa dating back 8 years. They arrested him on a Tuesday morning, at the office, in front of clients and colleagues. The local news covered it that evening. Prominent Portland financial advisor charged with fraud, murder. Vanessa was arrested the same day. The wedding was 2 weeks away. Deposits lost, guests notified. My fantasy of normalcy shattered completely. Michael called me from jail. I didn't answer. He called 17 times that first week. Finally, I picked up. "How could you?" His voice was raw, furious. "I'm your son. You turned me in, your own son. You killed your father." "I didn't. The digoxin it was Vanessa's idea. I never wanted." He stopped. Realized he'd just confessed. "You killed the man who loved you, who built a business so you'd have opportunities. You stole from people who trusted you, and you're asking me how I could turn you in? I'm still your son. You stopped being my son the day you murdered your father." I hung up. He didn't call again. The trial lasted 6 weeks. I sat in the gallery every day, watching my son's defense attorney try to paint him as a victim of Vanessa's manipulation. But the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the emails, the money trail, and Robert's voice from beyond the grave, documenting everything. Michael was convicted on 23 counts of wire fraud, money laundering, and 1 count of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without possibility of parole. Vanessa got 35 years. I didn't go to the sentencing. I couldn't watch my son be taken away in shackles, even though I knew he deserved it. Thomas went. He called me afterward. "The judge commended you," he said. "She said your courage in coming forward prevented further victims. She said Robert would be proud." I didn't feel courageous. I felt hollowed out, like someone had scooped away everything inside me and left just a shell. The firm paid restitution to all the clients. Some of them sent me cards, thanking me for my honesty, for stopping Michael before he took more. I couldn't read them. I put them in a box in the closet, unopened. Michael wrote me 1 letter from prison. It arrived 6 months after his conviction. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. "Mom, I know you won't forgive me. I don't expect you to, but I need you to know that everything I did, every choice I made, it wasn't because you and Dad failed. You didn't. You were good parents. You taught me right from wrong. I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway. That's on me, not you." Vanessa and we convinced ourselves we deserved that money more than those clients. We told ourselves they wouldn't even notice. We built this whole justification for something we both knew was theft. And when Dad found out, when he threatened to take it all away, I panicked. Vanessa said we could make it look natural. I didn't want to, but I didn't stop her either. I helped her get the digoxin. I watched her put it in his medication. I did nothing while my father died. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need you to know I understand what I took from you. Not just Dad, but the son you thought you had. I'm sorry I wasn't him. Michael. I read it once. Then I burned it in my fireplace and scattered the ashes. It's been 2 years since Michael's conviction. I'm 64 now. I live alone in my small condo in Southeast Portland. I volunteer at the medical center twice a week, mentoring new nurses. I have a book club, a garden, friends who understand I don't talk about my family. Sometimes people recognize my name from the news stories. They look at me with a mixture of pity and admiration, like they can't decide if I'm a hero or a tragedy. I'm neither. I'm just a mother who had to choose between protecting her child and doing what was right. I chose right. But it cost me everything. Thomas visits once a month. We have coffee, talk about his grandchildren, avoid discussing Michael. He told me once that Robert had written him a letter too, one that Thomas received after Robert died. In it, Robert said he'd made peace with what might happen to him. He said some evils can't be ignored, even when they wear the face of someone you love. He said he trusted me to be strong enough to see Michael clearly, even if he couldn't. I think about that a lot. Robert knew what Michael was, knew what he'd have to leave me to face, knew I'd have to be the one to act. He didn't ask me to forgive him for that burden. He just trusted I could carry it. I'm not sure if I have. Carried it, I mean. Some days I wake up and forget for a moment. I think about calling Michael to tell him something funny or reminding him about a birthday. Then I remember. And the weight settles back on my chest, heavy as ever. The hardest part isn't the guilt. I don't feel guilty for turning him in. The hardest part is wondering if there was a moment, some moment in his childhood when I could have changed this. A conversation I didn't have, a boundary I didn't set, a warning sign I didn't see. If I'd done something different, would my husband still be alive? Would my son be someone I could recognize? I'll never know. What I do know is that I sleep at night. Not well, but I sleep. I look at myself in the mirror and I don't turn away. I went to Robert's grave last month, on what would have been our 43rd anniversary. I told him I did what he asked. I told him I was sorry it took so long. I told him I loved him. I didn't tell him I still love Michael too, even after everything, even knowing he's a murderer, even knowing he'd probably do it all again if he could. He's still the baby I held, the boy I raised. That love doesn't die just because it should. That's what no one tells you about these impossible choices. You don't get to stop loving the person you're testifying against. You just have to love them and do what's right anyway. You have to break your own heart to save your soul. I did what was right. I got justice for Robert, protection for those clients, accountability for the crimes. I got the truth. But I lost my son. I lost my family. I lost the life I thought I'd have in my retirement, with grandchildren and holiday dinners and Sunday phone calls. Sometimes I wonder if Robert knew how much this would cost me, if he knew I'd spend the rest of my life alone with this choice. I think he did, and I think he also knew I was strong enough to pay that price. I just wish being strong didn't hurt so much. 2 years later, I'm still standing, still breathing, still showing up to my volunteer shifts, still tending my garden, still living, not happily, not peacefully, but living. And that's more than Robert got. That's more than Michael's victims would have gotten if I'd stayed silent. That's more than my conscience could have given me if I'd chosen the easier path. I made the hardest choice of my life. I'd make it again. But I'd never stop wishing I hadn't had to.